Clashes between government troops and Kurdish-led forces in northern Syria's Aleppo killed at least 9 people on Tuesday, mostly civilians. The implementation of a March deal to merge the Kurds' semi-autonomous administration and military into Syria's new Islamist government has largely stalled. Both sides traded blame over who started Tuesday's fighting, which the Kurds said included artillery and missile shelling, drones and sniper fire. It's prompted the suspension of flights to and from Aleppo, while the governor said schools, universities and government departments would close this Wednesday. Well, to help break down this story for us, I'm joined by Rochelle Ferguson Bouyahi in the studio. Rochelle, explain to us first what's behind this latest fighting.
Well, look, this latest fighting comes just a few days, 2 days to be precise, after the senior leadership of the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces met in Damascus with members of Ahmed al-Sharaa, that's the interim president there. Both sides then indicating that no progress were made in those talks. Let's go back to March of last year. In March of that year, there was a deal, if you will, signed by the SDF and the Syrian government forces. The idea was to merge the SDF with the Syrian government forces. However, those talks stalled. Why? A number of reasons. There were disagreements over command structures. There were disagreements over territory and who would maintain what aspects of Syria, and plus the future of the SDF. The SDF saying it's not clear what will become of us if we are integrated fully into the Syrian army. So that's one of the reasons that this latest fighting erupted. Now, it has to be said, these are the worst clashes since 2024 and the fall of Bashar al-Assad. You mentioned their heavy rocket fire, drones used. It's worth saying that if we bring up a map of the area in Aleppo where this happened, 2 Kurdish majority districts, Sheikh Maqsoud and Ashrafia, both of those are areas in Aleppo. They're shelled, civilians killed there. The SDF has issued a statement saying we're not behind the shelling that took place, that ultimately factions affiliated with the Damascus government are to blame. So both sides, as we've mentioned, levelling the blame at one another. The government forces, for their part, say we are now deploying more troops to that area, a sign that they expect this escalation to continue. Already 9 dead, but this could go further. It's important to remind our viewers, Karis, that the SDF represents the biggest obstacle, if you will, to unity in Syria. The Syrian government now saying we want, a unified government. We want the SDF to lay down their arms. But that, of course, is proving, as you can see from escalation on the ground, that's proving very complex indeed.
Well, remind us then, who exactly are the Syrian Democratic Forces?
Well, look, the Syrian Democratic Forces are a multi-ethnic alliance that formed with armed groups in 2015. That was during Syria's civil war. I hope you can bring you up some more information here. Now, that group, then, this multi-ethnic alliance composed of Arab, Assyrian and other local factions. The backbone of this, though, is the Kurdish People's Protection Units, otherwise known as the YPG. They played, of course, a central role in helping to fight ISIS in Syria. The SDF is also interesting because they have risen to prominence, if you will, because they are backed by the United States. What does that mean? That means that they've received military training, weapons, continued logistical support from the US, and that helped them, if you will, to be able to, face ISIS or be one of the main players in helping to defeat ISIS in Syria. It's important to speak as well because of, this backing by the US, they've been able, not just because, but one of the reasons, to control 1/3 of the country's resources. Now, when we talk about resources, we're talking about areas of the country where there is oil, where there's gas, where there are key crossings, and also major cities within the country Syria. And so this is a group that we know ultimately has, a lot of things going for it. They don't want to give up, this and just be integrated into the Syrian government's army without some real assurances of what will happen next for them. Just in terms of this question of autonomy, that is another key point of contention. The SDF wanting to maintain some autonomous, and that's, of course, problematic for Damascus. A last player in this is Turkey. Turkey sees the Syrian Democratic Forces, which are, of course, Kurdish-led, as a threat. They see them as a threat because they're linked to the PKK. The PKK, of course, have been fighting with the Turkish state for decades now. So that affiliation is problematic for Turkey. Turkey, in its own kind of step forward, has made sure that forces from the SDF who are along their southern border have been repelled. So again, you have Turkey saying we'd like them to be completely disarmed. But again, there's a lot of work to be done before that can be implemented.